Amaka, please go ahead and, oh, okay, good. Good. All right. Let's see. Yeah, hi, Amaka.
Okay, guys. So should we give them time to join in, or we should kick off with this number of people?
I think we can proceed with the number we have already.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Sorry, your other instructor can't make it, so we're picking it up for here because we didn't want to cancel this class.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so I just created a very simple frame, right? So of course, this is not following any screen size. This is just a random frame I just designed. What we're going to do here is we're going to create a couple of buttons, components, of course. We'll make them components, and I would also show you how to implement a component variance. So since you can see my screen, I believe we're good to go. All right, so let's assume, you're building a very simple website and you want to create a bunch of buttons ranging from a primary button, which is going to be the main button on your website, and you also have a secondary button, right? I think I can just take out the buttons to avoid repeating myself. Okay, so then let's also assume we have like a CTA button, right? So call to action. Okay, so we're going to use auto layout to make these buttons look like a button. You can use a rectangle and the text, of course, but I'm just going to use auto layout here. So let's apply a fill, and let's say the fill is blue, but a specific, let's see. Okay, so I think something like this isn't bad at all. I'm going to set the color to white, right? So to white. And yeah, so what I did here, of course, to make this auto layout, remember Shift A, right? So that's what I did here, and I'm going to replicate the same thing for the other options. And I'm just showing you basically, how I create this set of items without specifically implementing the variant I told you about. So I'm going to set a very simple, let's say 8 pixels. I think that's too much. 3 should be fine. Okay, for the border radius. And I'm also going to set to ensure that the text remains in the center, right? And then I'm going to set the space I have on the left and right. I'm going to make this 20. I think that is okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is to make this a component, right? And I'm sure you know how to do that. You just have to click on this to create a new component. And now you have this as a component. Let's call this a button. Okay. All right. So now that we have this button, I think one other thing that we can do is to, we can always go to the assets. Let's see. So you see we have our button right here. I have a bunch of other buttons coming from different libraries, right? So, but this is what we just created right now. So of course we can create new options directly from here. All right. So I'm going to move this down to the bottom for now. And what I'm going to do right now is to create a variance, right? And we have that option here once we select the component that we have created already. So it's very simple and straightforward. We have that option here, right? So if I go ahead and click on this, I automatically create a new variant. And the next thing I can do is to name that variant. We have the variant properties. So let's select the first variant, which is the first component we created. I'm going to call this primary. I'm just going to give it that name of primary. Okay. And the next one, I'm going to give it the name of secondary. All right. What can we do to this secondary button right now? I'm going to start by calling this secondary, and then also changing that color in there. So let us call this, let us use, well, okay, let's stick to this simple color. Yeah, all right, so let's stick to this color. So now we have 2 buttons in here. Let's give the, let's see. So let's try something new now. we're still going to come back to these options though, but let's try something new. We're going to create a button this time again. So let's do it this way. Okay, I think we really need to name this properly. I'm going to call this buttons. And I'm doing this just to ensure that we have, proper naming for the button variant right now. Okay, so let's just do it this way. All right, we're going to create a new button, and we can always switch from primary to secondary. And I'm sure you can see how I'm doing this. You can see how straightforward this is. So you don't always have to search for a new button. We know we just have one button type, which is one button component, and then we can switch the variants, from different from the drop down here. We can select any variant we're looking for. Let's assume now that we have a call to action. So what I'm going to do is to create a new variant of that same button, and now I'm going to call this call to action. And let's say our call to action has, I'm going to try to make this button a 3D button. These are some things to do for fun at times. So let's see, make this a 3D button by putting this here, putting this here. Okay. Then an inner shadow 40. All right. Okay, so let's assume we want to work with this. Let's do this up a little bit. Okay, good. So this is our call to action button, and remember you can always set the name, so CTA or call to action. And I think finally we had one other button there. Oh, okay, that's complete. Okay. All right, so can we change this automatically? Yeah, we can, right? So any place we've used this particular component, you can always switch, right? And the same thing that we've done here can be applied to other type of components. For example, modals, right? So we've been able to create 3 different variants, right, for this specific component. And of course, we can always create more. The benefit of using components is because you want to ensure that this your implementation is dynamic. You don't always want to, let's say you have like 50 instances of a primary button on your entire design. You don't want to always change things, like randomly. You want to have this level of consistency. So another option right now, I'm simply going to create another frame. All right. So let me take this off for now. Okay. And on this frame, we're going to, let's have a rectangle. Let's just have a rectangle. And on this rectangle, this is going to be like a dialog box, right? So let's say 5. So let's just say 20. Let's make it more edgy this time around. So for the fill, simply going to be linear, but it's going to be very bright, very, very bright. Okay. All right, so we're going to put in some text. I'm sure I don't really have enough plugins. Let's see if I do. Okay. All right, so let's work with this. Okay, so let's just say this is a very simple dialogue message. So that's using auto layout. I'm going to add a button here now. Obviously, this button is quite big, and I did not really make any adjustments, from the beginning. But I hope, I believe we can work with this. Yeah. Okay, so we're trying to show a particular dialogue with two buttons, basically. So, the first option is going to be with a single button. The second option is going to be with two buttons, and of course, this is quite straightforward. Even though the design is not implemented right, in the sense that the border radius is not really working. Right, so I hope we can just understand that. So we'll drop this. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a whole component, and you see this component is already having a component embedded in here, right? But the idea is we want to have two cases where we would have one single button, maybe like OK, right? And sometimes we would also have two buttons, and it's going to be like OK and cancel. So we're going to make this one single component. So let's do that. Right, so I just applied another auto layout, and then I am going to make this a component by simply clicking on this. Okay, all right, so this is a component right now. Let's add a variance. And on the variant, we're going to have multiple buttons. So okay, and cancel. So, and we need a different button for the cancel, right? And we want to ensure that that button has some sort of a different color. We don't have that color in here right now, but we're going to add that color. So let's go ahead and add a different variant here. And that color is going to be, we call that error, probably, or cancel. And of course, I believe you understand what I'm doing here. So just going to use that color, the red. And yeah, so now we have a variant here. Let's give this dialog. So I'm going to call this dialog OK. I'm going to call this dialog OK cancel. All right. And in here, we're going to change this to the other variant, the new variant that we did not name properly. So I'm going to call this cancel. Okay. So let us change this now to cancel. And we are going to try our best to see that all the buttons have equal sizes, right? Equal sizes. So let's do that. Let's change this to CTA so that we can maintain the size, right? Okay. Can we change this now? Let's see. Primary. Let's see. Fixed widths. I might have to also change this manually in here. Yeah, so the problem I have with this now is obviously you can see that it was affecting the size of this item. So I had to change the auto layout position to ensure everything fits in center. I want us to go ahead and name this properly. So this is dialog OK cancel. What we're going to do now is to ensure that this is properly aligned in the center. Okay, so let us create, let's assume you're working on your design right now, and you want to be able to change the option. So for example, you create a new component. So let's click on the dialog option. We'll create a new dialog and we say, okay, this is what we want. There's a problem, and there's a problem because I actually set this to, and I remember making that mistake, to a linear, yeah, let's change this to just white. the second option as well, let's do the same thing. So back to solid and just white. All right. So let's create a new option now. And this is what we have, right? And basically you are at that stage where you want to have the other option. You want to use the other option and not this option. So all you have to do is to change this OK cancel, right? So you see the difference. Now we're using what we call the component variance. Quite simple and straightforward to use. Mind my design, it's very bad. I mean, don't do this, okay? All right, so I think one other thing we need to really understand about working with components and trying to build up what we also call component libraries is the fact that you can actually export your components and make it work in such a way that it's reusable in other files, right? I think that is really important. A lot of people don't know that that is possible in Figma. So what we can do, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Always remember that for the variants, we can add as many variants as you want. One key thing is to ensure you name your variants properly. Ensure you name your variants properly. I mean, that's very important. Let's do this. So ensure you name your variants properly. And we're not teaching you style today, but I think style is also something that you must always remember to use and ensure to name things properly too when working with styles. So let me show you what we can do here. We can decide to publish our current local components, right? And what we will do when trying to publish is to basically click on this option you see here, this icon. Excuse me. Okay, so it's to basically click on this item that we have right here. So this is the team library. So when I click on this item, you see it is telling us that, okay, this is our current file. The name of the file is Untitled, and this is not published yet, so we can always publish this. I'm going to hide some of these items so that it won't show up here, right? These are some of the components I have, or some of the component libraries that I have published, and I can turn some of this on or off, right? So let us do this from here. What I'm going to do is first name this file properly. So just to ensure that, let's see. Okay. So components class. All right. So I'm going to come back to this option. This option right here. Remember this. Okay. So this is component class. Let's publish. Before publishing, if maybe you have it in mind that you don't want a specific component to show up here, you can always right-click on that and hide when publishing, right? So hide when publishing if you don't want that specific item to show up, right? Okay. So let's go back. Remember, you can always add more. Okay. So we're not adding any other one. Just to show you how to publish. Click on this, publish. And okay, so before we can publish this, we have to really move this into a team. I'm sure you might have seen this message probably when working on any design file. I'm going to explain what that means, but I will first take the question we have on the chat. So someone said, do we have to be on the paid version to be able to publish? Mine won't work. Well, I'm not sure. I think you can publish even on the free version. I have to really check that. Amaka, please correct me if I'm wrong. We are currently not using, I mean, this is not a free version specifically, but I think even when we were using the free version, we could publish. So yeah. So let me know if you are following with this tutorial. Let me know if you are getting any error message, right? Just let me know. What I'm going to do right now is to move this to a team because I basically don't have this in the team. This is just a single file, right? So let us move this to a team. I'm going to create a new, I think I can put it under the learn fast. Yeah, I think I can do that. All right, so let's add a description. Let's see, okay, it's simple. This is not necessary though. A simple components file for my design workflow. Okay, publish. Let's see. Okay, so what exactly is the reason for publishing? I've explained this already. I'm going to repeat myself now. So we're publishing this because we probably want to we want a situation. Let's come back to the learn fast. So this is where we publish this item, right? So let me mark this as favorite. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create a new file in here. So this is our component, right? Edited just now. So let's create a new file. And inside that same team and that same project, I'm going to call this file web design. So yeah, web design. And then I'm going to create a desktop screen. Let's use a desktop or iMac. I most times prefer working with iMac because that's the standard 1280. I think it's 1280 by 720 screen size. So a quick one here where we're trying to probably implement a very simple web design, right? So you have maybe like a navigation, then you have this other area which happens to be, you can use a frame for this. I'm just using a simple rectangle. So let's assume, this is what we're trying to do, a dark themed website. So for the stroke, I'm just going to use whites just to differentiate. There's nothing special about this option. So right, so let's just drop this 10. All right, so now we have like our navigation on top. We have our hero section here, and we want to just bring in one of those our components. Now, when I go to the assets, you see that when I go to the assets, I can explore the library, and you see that we have the component class right here, learn fast. So I'm going to turn this on, right? You see it shows up here right now, and I can always come back here now and select the components, right? And then I can also drop down and change, to a different variant. So you see the way I've been able to bring in a particular component that I designed in a different file. And now I am actually able to separate my workflow. I have a different file for implementing my components, and then I have a different file for implementing my main project, right? So it's a good idea. Probably you have maybe like a style guide somewhere. Of course, you can have multiple pages, but the reason why I personally prefer this workflow or this pattern is because I think sometimes it's good to leave your project lightweight. You don't. It's not very heavy. With a bunch of components or design systems. Or light or probably random components. Well, what I do is I have it in a different file. I publish it and I use those components in my main file, but I ensure that everything is within a project. And the reason why I do that, to ensure it's within a project is to make sure that I don't get confused along the line. Because if you're using it in multiple projects, it works. But the problem is sometimes you might always have to verify things. You might always have to locate the specific component file because you're not really sure where it is. So I have a bunch of other projects, that have components, and of course I can turn them on if I want to, right? You see, we have CCD, and I think the CCD project that we're working on is using a paid design system or design library. I think it's called the Design Encyclopedia or the Designership. So you see, it has a bunch of predefined components that we can reuse. For example, modals, right? So you see, yeah. Okay, so I think this is almost yeah. So this is a modal, right, with multiple actions. You see, this is also a component, and this should also have some variants. I'm not sure. Let's see. Nope. All right. So I don't think this has any variants. Okay. Okay. All right. So, but yeah, I believe you get the idea. And at the end of the day, we can even quickly go to the main components. It takes us straight to the main file where the component was implemented. So basically, this is how we work with components and component libraries. And I think if you have any other question as regards what I've covered here, go ahead and ask those questions in the chat, and I'll take those questions in the next 4 minutes. Okay. All right. Please turn off your camera. I think I can see someone's camera turned on. Please turn it off, okay? Go ahead and ask your questions, please. If you have any questions, drop a question so that we can take it as fast as possible before we finalize with this session. It's quite straightforward and simple, working with components. And I just explained that the benefit of using components is to ensure that you don't have, duplication of designs everywhere. You can always reuse those designs. You can always reuse those things you've. So someone said, can you show us how you fill the variant container again? Okay, so I don't think I understand what you mean by fill. If you meant fill with a color, but I'm going to open it again and assume that you meant fill by selecting that item and filling it with color here. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but basically that's what I did, right? So if you're talking about filling the variant group itself, it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary. You can decide to have this directly without a frame. I choose to put it in a frame just to ensure that I have it bounded somewhere. It's not necessary to have it in a frame. As a matter of fact, you can have each and every one of them on the same frame if you want to, right? You can have everything on the same frame if you want to. But when you say fill, yeah, so I think what you mean is filling the component itself here. So it's just by selecting the component and changing that color, right? So let's assume you have a light and dark option, and I think this is where proper naming comes in. So I can decide to add a new variant here. This is a new variant, and I'm going to call this let's say lights. Sorry, let's call this dialog. Okay. Lights, right? When you're trying to name things like this, ensure you always use the slash so that it will be able to, you can group things properly. You understand? So this is dialog. Okay, I think this is lights. This is dialog. Okay, cancel lights, and then we can have this to be dark, right? And if we have this to be dark, then of course you know what to do, right? So the background would probably be 151515. The text would probably be white this time around. This would be probably something brighter. This would also carry white text. Okay, so this is probably not the best thing you have to do. This is looking really bad. Yeah. So this is not looking very okay. So yeah, you might have to, you might want to do this since we're talking about the dark themed sites, right? So you can also have this other option. So you can have this other option right here. So let's take this off. All right. So you can also decide to, make this I'm going to use the same naming convention here. Okay, cancel, but dark. And this would give you the same result, like if we choose to, let me just switch this for now. So you see there's basically a problem, right? The problem here is that I'm changing these options directly. I'm not supposed to do that here. Instead, I would have actually done that here. So just in case you don't understand what I mean, let me show you what I mean. So basically, I can decide to add a new variant and call this primary dark, right? So I can call this primary dark and work with the option I have here. So my battery is really low. Yeah, but you get the point. So I can call this primary dark and switch this automatically without having to do what I did here, right? I can definitely, let's go back. So let's reset all changes and I'll just change it directly. See. So I can change it directly by calling this dark, probably primary dark, and change this to primary dark, right? So that's just an example. Then when I go back to my main design, the other design, I can definitely choose to switch, right? I can definitely choose to switch. The thing there is all I have to first do is to ensure that I republish, right? You definitely have to republish. So you definitely have to republish this file again so that it can have those new changes. So you have to click on this and publish 2 changes, right? Publish. And then when you come back here, you can switch. Let's see, how do I switch? Okay, back to, let's turn this off. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right, so you see, I can switch. Dialog, okay, dark. I can also switch here. Okay, I think this was the previous one I put in. Okay. So yeah, I can switch. As you can see, we have those new options. I did not really edit this properly on the previous page. So, but you get the point, I can actually switch. All right, so I believe I explained that properly. Okay, so someone is saying sometimes the button I create are not responsive. Yeah, maybe when you use auto layout and set things properly, you would enjoy working with those buttons even better. So how do we create a toggle on or off for variance, true or false? Well, all you have to do is just, create the base and utilize it, So my battery will not allow me do that, and apologies because I did not put on my power source. So, but it's quite simple. It's quite simple to do that. So, if you have, yeah, and I'm sure this is going to go off any moment from now. But let's see if you have something like this. So I just created a very simple oval shape, and I brought in this guy right here. Just ensure it is seated properly. And then this can be white. And of course, so you have that initial option. You have to try as much as possible to also ensure that this is properly aligned, right? So duplicate this, and instead of duplicating this, make this a component, right? So let's make this a component, create a component, create a variant, and let's just do it this way. You can also try to use the auto layout to structure this, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to make it as simple as this. And let's say this is the turned on green, light, green. No, that's what you want to do. Maybe this is not what you want to do, right? So maybe this is not the best. Let's see, something quite different. Okay. So probably this is how you want to do it, and then you have to set the names, right? So on, right? So toggle on, maybe toggle on, maybe toggle off. Okay, and here, what do we call it? Toggle, right? So let's call this toggle. Of course, you have it right here. So when you bring in a new instance, you can always toggle it on or off. So yeah, I believe I did that very simple, but you can always have more complex states. So how do we create okay, so I think I explained that, Adebola. I mean how you balanced the size of primary layout with the secondary in the variant. Oh, okay. So you said not this type of toggle. Then please, which type of toggle are you referring to? So I mean how you balance the size of the primary layout with the secondary variant. Okay, so I don't think I understand that question, Zoom user. So please, as for the type of toggle you're referring to, I think you're saying when you set the property of the component to true or false. Okay, I get your point. So you are referring to the kind of we call that checks, where you can set it to true or false with the check states. Just to ensure you are able to turn that on or off. Is that what you mean? Let's go back to the chat. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I won't be able to show you that. I think we can definitely implement some kind of interactive widgets. I would prefer to call that, interactive widgets or interactive states. And that is something I can show you. So you remind us, and we'll definitely arrange for that. But yeah, that's something I can definitely show you. I can show you how to do that using Figma. That's not an issue. But I believe for those of you, some of you should probably learn one or two things from this section. Working with variance and your basic components. So so just in case you have more questions, I think you can always drop it in the chat, and Amaka would Amaka or someone else would assist you within the Discord server. All right, so I think that will be all. That will be all for this session, Amaka. So you can take it up from here. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, all right. So I think that's all for today's class. We don't want to take much of your time because we know today's Saturday and it happens to be, sorry, for those of us in Nigeria, it's all one bedtime. So you can go and